What is up, YouTube fam? Robbie C here. Today we are back in the backyard at the putting training grounds, and we are going to talk about why you are having some trouble putting and 3 common reasons that may be making that happen. Before I dive in, I have to ask, Austin, how are you doing today? Are you having a good one?
So catch me if I fall.
Now I'm going to go ahead and open up by saying that this video is not going to be viewed near as much, not as it should, because that sounds like super narcissistic. Oh, you guys should be watching my videos all the time. They're so important. Here we go. Yeah. I got so much wisdom. Being good at putting, being better at putting, just doesn't have quite the same draw or is quite the same cool factor as being able to throw the disc 500 feet. But like we have talked about plenty of times here on the channel, I understand some people want to throw for distance, and that's totally fine. You need to find the thing that makes you have the most fun playing this game. But at the time that I'm filming this, I actually tried to break off the rust of going back to competing in competitive disc golf tournaments. Yesterday, I actually went down to the University of Montevallo and played in a fundraiser event that they were having for their college disc golf team, trying to raise money going to nationals. I'm actually playing my first sanctioned event after taking over a year off in April, so very much looking forward to being back out there. And it was really fun getting to kind of shake off the rust during the tournament yesterday. Now, they didn't offer MPO, so I played MA1 while I was there and was 4 strokes back of the lead coming out of the first round, and ended up going into the final 3 holes of the tournament, went birdie, eagle, birdie, trying to push and put myself in position for a 3-hole playoff. How did I get there? Because I wasn't necessarily throwing out of my mind. I just simply made a lot of putts that other people on my card weren't necessarily making. The most common issue that I see that people fail to understand when it comes to putting is simply, where does the power come from in our disc golf throw? Now, how I know this translates is because we create this mental wall when it comes to putting that I think a lot of people don't realize is being put up. And here's the greatest example of this. I'll see this happen quite often. MA3 player lining up a 10 or 15 foot putt, and they're here and they're thinking about it and they're spinning it, they're going through the motions, and it doesn't feel like a cupcake of trying to make this putt, we'll say. They're struggling and they're here and they miss the putt. They jasper it right into the front of the cage. They're upset by it, and they'll walk out here and they'll be like, ugh. So they'll tap it in. And when they tap in that putt, someone else may have, already putt before them, and their putter's just chilling, let's say, in the bottom of the basket. They didn't ask them to clear it because they didn't think it was going to be in the way, whatever. I would always suggest getting in the practice of letting them clear their putt, but that's neither here nor there. So they'll pick up their putter out of the basket, and they'll have this moment of like, okay, I got mine, but then they'll also pick up the other person's putter who they didn't clear, and without even blinking, they'll turn around and just toss it back to them. Now, did I make the putt there? No, I didn't. But if that was a person, I just tossed it right to them, and notice that it had the height to get clearly there. Not only did I not get to the basket, I landed 12 feet past the basket. And this highlights the point of not knowing where the power comes from. Especially when I do putting lessons at our local shop, one of the things that I like to make sure that people know is, hey, how far do you feel like you can comfortably make putts? I will, while I'm having this conversation, getting to know them at the start of the lesson, I will actually have them throw, we'll just play catch. And I'm just slowly moving back while they're tossing me this putter. And without fail, I'll get to about 25 feet. And because they're not thinking about putting, they're just tossing me the disc over and over again. And it's very much landing within this center chest area almost every single time. I'm barely even having to move left or right. But as soon as I tell them from that same distance, hey, I want you to go ahead, line it up, throw the shot at me, what do they end up doing? They end up creating jitters, and they go from this natural motion of trying to toss the disc to me, so they suddenly try to change how they do it. We got to figure out how we toss a disc, because your body knows how to throw something. Whether it looks good or not, That's to be determined. But tossing it can be really helpful here. And we need to know that power in a disc golf putt comes from 3 places. Your fingers being engaged in the throw. Second is your wrist being engaged in the throw. And the third is your legs being engaged in the throw. Now, depending on who you are, you can accomplish this a couple different ways. Calvin Heimberg and Ricky Wysocki are both very famous push putters. But Calvin generates a lot more of his power from the fingers and from the wrists, not as much from the legs. Ricky does almost the exact opposite. And Ricky gets a ton of power out of his wrist and his legs, and he comes all the way down here and he's popping up the hand. That just shows where the different power portions come from. And we have other videos here on the channel. We may refilm some of them soon to talk about like readdressing those, but the power can be important. So here's step 1 to fixing that. You've heard me talk about them before, but DiscDot, I truly believe, is the best putting product in all of disc golf. And DiscDot actually has offered some new little fun markers. We're bringing them back. We are reinventing them to give them a little more sturdiness. And so we're selling these little packs that come with 3 disc dots and 3 markers that you can put down, and they're color coordinated. And I think this actually helps us a lot. And so we're going to be talking about how to use this color coordination, how to use these disc dots to help with 3 common problems. If you're interested in these, we're going to flash this a couple times, but you can check them over out at discdotusa.com or at Foundation Disc Golf. You can also find them and use code RCDiscGolf to save yourself a little bit of money along the way. So I have these color clips and we're going to talk about those in a second, but I'm going to use 2 of the disc dots here. I'm going to use the blue and the red disc dot to highlight this. I'm going to take the blue disc dot and I'm going to put it almost dead center on the pole. And then I'm going to take this red dot and I'm actually going to go equidistant here on the back and then go to the same chain. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to go back here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And I'm going to go 1 more down. I'm going to go 1 more chain link. So I'm going to go 7 down here. And this is going to help me with power here as we jump over to seeing where we're going to place these markers. I've got blue marker on the front, red marker on the back. And the thing that I need to know about putting is so often when people are generating that power, once you understand where the power comes from and we start putting, we think we got to give it enough to just get into the basket. Just get into the basket. Just get into the basket. So we're going to use our red and our blue marker as examples here. For this blue marker, I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go about 12 feet away. I'm going to take this blue marker and I'm going to put it on the ground. So I know that the blue is about 12 feet away and I'm going to move back another 3 or 4 feet and I'm going to take the red one and we'll leave it face up right there. This is where I really think DiscDot begins to shine, is when I hit a putt with the DiscDot. When I actually hit the dot, that lets me know, hey, I've landed in a good space. Did that putt go in? Sure, but it was pretty far right. It didn't actually hit the DiscDot. That one a little low, didn't hit the DiscDot, bang. So that one hits the DiscDot. I know it's good. But if I barely try to give this enough power to get to the DiscDot, you can see it comes in pretty soft. And that, even from 12 feet, feels really timid for a lot of people. And because when we feel timid on putts, we end up jerking our motion, and we can often, because we feel timid, we can try to give it extra spin and wrist pop. And because of that, we add the power from the wrist and it ends up pulling us right at the basket. For most people, if you're missing left or right, it's because your feet are either aimed up, pointing you in that direction, or you're over wristing it, pulling it to the right. But here's where the dots come in really handy. I can putt to the blue and I can get used to this, and I can use this as a confident range that I need to tell myself, you still need to fully send this into the basket. Even if I take that a step further of just not saying, hey, let me aim at the dot and give it enough power to hit the basket, I can adjust to not hitting the blue dot, but now I can, in theory, I'm not gonna be able to get to it because there's a pole in the way, but I can putt with enough power to try to get to the red dot. Now, this is where I really wanna highlight something on the distance markers. There's 3 to 4 feet of difference right here. If I take this putt from right here and I try to adjust nothing about it from right here, notice I didn't go in there. I didn't adjust the height or the power on it at all. It was short. But if we look where that first putt came in, it came in low right here. So if I try to adjust accordingly, and let's try to throw a putt that's gonna hit the blue marker. Okay, now that felt good. That hit the blue marker. Let me try to throw with the exact same power. And notice, even going soft right here, I had changed nothing about the putt because my initial aiming point was right here on the blue marker, and I'm making putts with the same stroke from further back because I taught myself how much power and height is needed to make it from there. And so often, if we don't get used to practicing from different ranges, we can teach ourselves this stroke. And this same putting stroke, if I have the right aiming tool, actually is the same putt that's going to work for several instances further back. When we try to make a putt in disc golf, most often we're aiming at, that's right, the basket. We're trying to put the putter into the basket. The problem is that if I'm aiming at the basket holistically, this large target means that when I miss 5 inches to the right, I'm here and I'm hoping that I'm gonna grab a chain or two and it's gonna fall in. This is not a good target to aim at, the entire basket. Because also when I'm trying to aim at the basket, if I'm a foot or two low, that's the cage and I'm jaspering it over and over again. I'm a foot or two high, I'm hitting the band over and over again. Whereas here, the blue dot shines, the red dot shines, but even the yellow dot shines real bright on this basket. I can take this yellow dot and I can put it right here in the dead middle of the basket. I can then use this yellow putting marker and I can start moving myself further and further back until I find myself in a trouble area to where I can't consistently hit the yellow dot. The nice thing here is, there I missed about 2 inches low, but you know where it still landed? In the dead middle of the basket. I can throw another putt, still a little low, that's a little high, but notice all of these are still on the pole. You can make the adjustment over and over again because I'm not aiming at the basket. This smaller aiming point actually keeps me honed in and focused and allows me to actually miss. One of my favorite things is when I'm putting is that a lot of times when my putt is feeling really good, that putter is up and my people that I'm playing against know pretty much the whole time, dang, that putt never left the pole. It's dead center, it's floating in every time. I'm almost always putting with DiscDots, so I get that repetition over and over again of knowing exactly where to throw the disc, exactly how I'm aiming the disc. And those slight variations, I'm telling you, I can know, all right, this is a putt that feels really good for me. And if it's off to the right by 5 inches, a foot, and I'm even still having a chance to hyzer in and hit the basket, hit the cage, I just get my putt dialed in so much more rather than thinking every time that I go to practice putt, yeah, all I gotta do is just put it in the basket. Okay, cool. When the entire goal is putting it in the basket, even from this short of a range, I could talk myself into thinking that all of these putts were good. 2 of them were on this side, and then that pink one came in pretty far to the left. 3 of those were not putts that I like or I feel good about. Is the result good? Sure. And if I just want to base disc golf on the results, then repeatability and consistency are never going to be my friend. And that's how sometimes I'm going to have rounds where I feel like my putter is super hot. Sometimes I'm going to have rounds where my putt is super low. But these small aiming points also create honed in expectations to allow you to know your stroke so that you have less, I have no idea what happened with my putting today, kind of moments, and I have more moments where I know what I'm doing so that I can repeat them in every round that I play. Now let's talk about my last tip when it comes to honing in these things and really like the mistake that I think lots of people make, and it comes down to practice routines, but more importantly, it comes down to practicing the same type of putt that you may or may not actually ever get to experience while you're on the disc golf course. One thing that makes disc golf putting so much easier than golf putting is that we don't necessarily have to read greens. We have the wind affecting our putts and things like that. We have, you know, maybe a slight elevation change that may affect things. 9 times out of 10, we're gonna be in some open putting stance and have the opportunity to just throw it in, and the range of the putt is the only thing that matters. However, this, as we know, is not how things go while we're on the disc golf course. What if my drive lands me in the middle of this bush? Literally yesterday during a tournament, I had a putt where my putt landed back here and I had to be behind here and I couldn't stand up because I had a tree in my way. So I had to make a putt from about this distance, bundled up, where I'm squatted, I'm inside of a tree, and I barely have any room to make power. And I had to try to drain the putt. For lots of people, I even made a joke to my card, you know, it's nice being 6'3", it's nice having that moment, or that like opportunity, you know, to be tall and all that. But there are times on the putting green where I wish I was not 6'3". But in the moment when I was there in the tournament and I was bundled up inside of a tree, but I was that close to the basket, I was able to make the putt. Why was I able to make the putt? Because here in my backyard, I'm able to simulate a host of putting opportunities that switch things up, because I don't just sit here and practice flat ground putts wide open over and over again. This is another area where I think DiscDots really shine, is because you can practice a host of different things. For me, my personal aiming point, because I throw a nose down putt, I try to keep this blue one is pretty accurate to where I keep most of my putting for putting practice. I try to keep it a little high because I know that most of the time my putter is going to be diving in. So this is pretty accurate for the blue. If I'm putting from an uphill circumstance, then what I want to do is I want to make sure that the aiming point is a little, if I'm uphill, I want to make sure that aiming point is a little lower so that I can aim for that. If my putt is downhill, or I'm downhill of the basket, then I'm going to try to make sure that I aim that a little higher. I'm going to show you just a nice little putting area circle setup that I can even use. Thankfully, I have a lot of baskets in my backyard, but you can even use these on the same setup in the same area, even if you only have one basket. Now keep in mind, once again, I understand that not everyone has multiple putting options, multiple putting pieces. So when you're practicing these drills, it can be very easy to grab that fat stack of putters and like, I've got all these lined up and I'm just bam, 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 I'm putting over and over again. And we talked about before, if you can find repeatability and consistency to carry it from the course, from practice green to the course, is try to find similar putters. Even here with working with Gateway, you'll see we got a video coming next week that this inconsistency I have of, yes, these are all Wizards, but even amongst these two plastics are the same. Topanga's a different plastic than even the Fossil plastic is. So I've got a multitude of plastics existing even between these practice putters, and while I still have the same mold, which is helpful, even just having different weights or different plastic feels is going to have some effect in the consistency of me getting the maximum efficiency out of putting practice that I want. So for this exercise, rather than putting with a whole multitude of putters, I'm just going to take the 2 putters that I keep in my bag, and I've got markers set up going to the different stations. You can see on this basket over here, the yellow one is going to be coming from up high, so the dot is aimed high because I need to aim higher. Going downhill to the disc catcher over there, I've got a red dot on there, and I've got a blue dot for flat putts. I've got these 2 putters, and it's not about firing off on this type of a drill where I'm firing off repeatability in terms of like, oh, I'm really trying to work on flat ground practice. I'm coming here, and that second one felt so much better. I knew it when it came out of my hand. That's where I need to be. I'm gonna come over here, and I'm going to downhill putts now. Didn't give that one enough chance. Gave that one a little more chance. The building being right next to it did help us out there. I need to give it a little more height, a little more pop. Here we are uphill. Okay. All right, uphill putts. Neither of the uphill putts went great. What this also teaches me is rather than sitting here grinding the same putt over and over again, I'm having to adjust and change what I'm doing as I walk around these stations, and I can use, like I said, even if I have one basket, I can use these different markers to create different putting stations. And with only throwing 2, I'm much more simulating how putting actually goes because I'm moving between so many shots and getting this practice over and over again. I don't have to be putting to different baskets. I can quite simply, building helped us out again there too. I've got lots of friends who tell me that they're working on putting in disc golf. There are 2 in particular that are coming to mind that I know are doing X amount of putts a day or putting for X amount of time a day. And because of that, they're trying to regain that putting confidence. And I have no qualms with you tackle this however you want to tackle this. I'm always a fan of using time versus reps because reps, I can still have bad putts that go in the basket. But if I work on time, then when things are feeling confident, I can go ahead and call it for the day. When things are feeling off, I can put in more time to try to help and correct it. But I firmly believe as long as you're spending time practice putting, you're going to see the rewards, you're going to see the benefit coming from that. It's just about finding how to use it effectively. And I think that if we look at these 3 errors, for most people who struggle with putting, they can go back to one of those 3 and realize, oh yeah, the reason it's not translating is because all I've done is I've only practiced 15-foot putts over and over and over again on a perfectly flat surface. And you know what? During my round, I didn't have any 15-foot putts from a flat ground. Well, did you learn in your practice to become a better putter? Or did you learn how to get really good at a 15-foot shot? So I hope this was helpful, and I hope that it wasn't too soapboxy. I get very, very passionate about putting because I see the frustration that I like being with players who can't figure it out. And I just want to do my part in helping you guys take that extra step. I have spent more time trying to improve my putting than I have literally any other part of my game. And so I want to help you expedite that process for what took me years to get master. I want you to be able to master it in a much shorter amount of time. So I hope this was helpful. Please let me know in the comments. As always, I want to say thank you for watching and thank you for tuning in. And I hope you have an amazing rest of your week. We have a huge week next week coming for content. We're talking an in the bag, and we have something really special coming up in terms of just an opportunity that was presented to us inside of disc golf that I never thought possible. So in the meantime, hope you have an amazing rest of your week. Please make it fantastic for someone else too. But for now, we're going to leave you with the birdie.